Simon Calder is with us outside Liverpool Street Station right here in London. Simon, a very good morning to you.
Mike, yes, and well, you were talking to Isabel just now about nostalgia, which some people apparently feel for COVID. If you have nostalgia for rail strikes, don't worry, they're back. We've got 4 days of rail strikes today, on Saturday the 18th, then on Thursday the 30th of March, 2 weeks from now, and on top of that, April Fool's Day, that Saturday, which will take the rail strikes, national rail strikes, first since the 1980s, into their 11th month, with no sign of a settlement. Although there are some interesting things happening today. If you want to travel from Liverpool Street Station to maybe beautiful Southend, lovely Clacton, notable Norwich, then you can do that very easily. There's trains running all day. Yes, they're finishing a little bit early, but we are seeing right across the country, I think about a half of train services are running, which, of course, if you're a union trying to bring the nation to a halt, isn't particularly brilliant news.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, you've been saying recently, though, you were of the opinion that this might be coming to an end soon. We know that there's been talks going on. I was listening to an interview with Jeremy Hunt this morning, at the end of which he kind of hinted that there might be some kind of light at the end of the railway tunnel, if you'll pardon the use of that. And we're hearing that unions from the NHS have received a new pay offer, and you wonder whether maybe that will have some knock-on effect on Sir Mick Lynch, as I like to call him.
Well, I was talking to Mick Lynch just a little earlier across at Euston Station, where they've got the usual picket line.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, look, how long is this going to go on for? You know, you've been on strike for many, many months now. Your members have lost thousands of pounds. And he gave me the strong impression that he wants to begin talks in the next few days. Now, the train operators, who are represented by the Rail Delivery Group and ultimately signed off by ministers, basically said, well, you've had your best and final offer. Just put it to your members. And of course, the RMT says it was a rubbish offer. We're not going to put such a rubbish offer to them. So we will see, I think, some movement, because ultimately, if we are living in a situation where anybody who does, for example, today need to get from Plymouth to Inverness can do that by train quite easily on a strike day. And you are seeing more and more people just saying, OK, if you're not working, that's fine. I'll stay in Stevenage or Woking or other wonderful commuter locations, and I won't travel in that day. At which point you're kind of your members are carrying on striking, losing hundreds of pounds a time, and not actually getting to a position where they're going to be able to recoup that. So I think we will see some movement. Meanwhile, of course, the reputation of rail for resilience gets worse and worse and worse, and the finances look even more horrible than they did before.
Yes, and I mean, nothing, as far as we can tell, in the budget for train companies as such, or any kind of restructuring or anything like that. Is that a sort of pie-in-the-sky hope that some people might want to wonder whether these companies can ever run the railways properly?
Right, OK, so at the moment, and interesting talking to Mick Lynch, and you might have heard him on various media today, they are absolutely saying this is all the fault of the private companies. They've taken billions out of the railways. He knows, and I know, that's complete tosh. What's actually happening is that the Department of Transport is outsourcing a large number of train operators, such as Greater Anglia here at Liverpool Street, Avanti West Coast, GTR. But ultimately, they just pick up a pretty small margin in return for outsourcing, just like, you know, quite possibly your bins are outsourced.
Yes.
And so, therefore, this is an argument between the government and the train and the rail unions. Bear in mind, we've still got talks going on between ASLEF and the rail companies. But the big issue, as far as the government is concerned, is that the railways have lost maybe 20% of long-term revenue. In particular, all those people who live in Stevenage and Woking and Basildon, who used to commute in, who aren't doing that anymore. And you need to have reform in order to shore up the finances. And they say, yeah, we can get this to work. The taxpayer will still be putting in several billion every year, but we've got to have some reform. And the unions just say, no, we want a no strings offer. However, when I put that to Mick Lynch this morning, he said, well, when you're in negotiations, you quite often say stuff, but you don't really mean it. Effectively, was what he said. So they will take some strings. Meanwhile, though, while all this drags on, the rail workers are losing cash, the rail passengers are losing patience, and increasingly, rail looks irrelevant, as it is actually for the majority of people who are sitting listening to you in their cars thinking, how much am I paying to keep this railway system going?
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? And with every strike, it kind of gets further and further away from the majority of people, because many more people now working from home as a result of this sort of, I mean, I've got to send one of my kids to a school. I've got to make a decision as to whether I can put him in a school that he needs to take a train to get to every day, because I don't know whether the trains are going to be running every day. And if it's a half-hour train ride, what are you supposed to do, when it doesn't run?
Well, that's it. That they are absolutely undermining the resilience, which is affecting people who are travelling for reasons of education, or maybe, as in your case, or maybe visiting family who are just deciding, can I actually rely on this? And the longer this goes on, the more people will just walk away, and the worse condition the railways will be in.
And then the worst condition the roads will be in yesterday. I mean, it might not surprise you to know that I had to commit myself to an illegal manoeuvre in order to get out of a traffic jam. I await the punishment from the great Sadiq Khan as to what camera he caught me on doing it. It's nothing terrible, but, a traffic violation, a moving violation, they used to call it in America, because the roads were literally at a standstill.
Oh, yeah, I was in London yesterday, gridlocked because of the tube strike, which isn't actually even over pay or anything. It's over what might happen to pensions. But it's part of the same narrative, Mike, which is that effectively the tube in London, the railways nationally, they are too important to fail. So therefore, all you've got to do is keep striking, and eventually you will get the money or the pension terms that you are demanding, while many people in many occupations are having to put up with worse terms and conditions simply to keep their jobs. But the idea is, the government keeps funding this, and that's the way it's got to go. So with the tube argument, the unions are saying, oi, Sadiq Khan, Mayor of London, you go and get some more money from the government, which makes it sound like the easiest thing imaginable. I can imagine that's not going to be a discussion that goes especially well.
No, indeed. And I guess we should have a final word about HS2. Proof, if necessary, that you don't need to go on strike to ruin a railway. You can just invent a new one.
Yes, you can invent a new one and then just spend the next 10 years chopping bits off. So HS2 might open in 2033 from a place called Old Oak Common, which is about 6 miles west of central London.
I know it well.
Not a place you particularly want to go, and you'll be able to go to central Birmingham very quickly, and that would be great, except if you want to go to central London, you have to change to Crossrail. And they've already locked off the Leeds leg. It looks as though Birmingham to Manchester might not go ahead until maybe 2040, even later, perhaps, by which stage you may be in your 40s yourself, Mike.
Well, I'm pretty sure that HS2 will not actually run one single yard before I drop dead. So I'm not expecting to be on it at any point, I'm afraid. But thank you, Simon, as ever, for your update.